Take two.
One. Welcome back to the Unconnoisseur, everyone. This week's artist we're so excited to talk about. He recorded for Blue Note label and then he switched to the Verve label in 1962. This week's artist played the Hammond B3 organ and put the fat back in the pan. Of course, we're talking about the legendary Jimmy Smith. So, welcome.
Welcome all.
Everybody. Welcome.
Yeah.
Music time. All right, we're back. Well, let's get this show on the road.
Yeah, let's do it.
Definitely.
Dad, tell me about your week in music. What was it like? What'd you have in your ears?
Okay, so really all week I had Jimmy Smith in my ears. And then I'm thinking, what was one of the first albums or song that I heard as a kid growing up?
Mm-hmm.
So in 1958, Johnny and the Hurricanes played Red River Rock. And I played that maybe a dozen times this week, and I loved it and went back to it over and over again. And then, of course, Booker T and the MGs,
Okay.
Green Onions, baby. Man, that's a good taste right there.
Okay. All right.
I listened to that a couple times over. But at the same time, I went to the Bible college, and during chapel, Ira Gehrig would sit behind this humongous organ, and on any given day, he would play on that organ, and it would stir your heart just overflowing. And he'd play "Great Is Thy Faithfulness," and it's like, whoa. And it was so powerful. So an organ has been part of my life for quite a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Let me add one more thing. Today, I'm thinking about organ music, and I know this will be a surprise to you guys, but one of your heroes, Led Zeppelin.
Zeppelin.
What's that song about? We're not. I have it written down here somewhere. Since I've Been Loving You on the third album, and John Paul Jones is playing the bass with the foot pedals of the organ, not the stand-up bass, not with the organ, just the foot pedals. Incredible piece. Only to realize it's a blues piece. Now you guys knew that. I had no clue that Led Zeppelin would play blues.
Welcome to Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, the many facets of their music. I mean, rock and roll, obviously, but yeah, you add the blues in there. Even a little, you can see a little gospel in Zeppelin. But yeah, anyways, yep, good man. That sounds like a good week in music.
Yeah, it was.
What about you, Matt?
Oh, well, yeah, I just could not really get off this week's artist. I had Jimmy in my ears almost constantly when I wasn't listening to our personal journey artist, which could be a whole lifetime of listening in itself. It was, I didn't want to leave Jimmy. That's the thing. I just didn't want to leave. I explored even more albums this week than I did last year when we did this. And it was a great week. Kendra and I were invited to go see the Def Leppard cover band called Pyromania. So the cover band was playing at the Clyde Theater, and I was worried that the Clyde is a standing room only venue, but they've got some really nice suites up on the top. Now, the person that invited us to go Yeah, he bought a suite. So we were sitting in a suite with three other couples listening to the Def Leppard cover band, and they were really super. I mean, they were super talented, really, really good. You know, if you could close your eyes and picture Def Leppard playing, you'd think it was them. That's how good they really were. After the concert was over, we headed over to back to the club room to finish out the night listening to the Sweetwater All Stars play, and the lead guitarist from the Def Leppard Pyromania band came over, and we were talking with him a little bit. So it was just cool to be sitting there talking with him. Just yeah. Otherwise, it was a great week in music. It really, really was.
Is he going to be on check out the Unconnoisseur?
No, no. I think we're a little bit above his pay grade. He's just a lead guitar player. He doesn't play jazz.
That's you never know. You never
That's
know.
True. That's true.
Everybody finds their inspiration in different places. You never know.
True.
Julie, what about you?
Well, this week, I agree with Matt. I couldn't get my ears off of Jimmy. If I wasn't listening to this album, The Sermon, I was listening to House Party or several others. There was a couple of days I just put his stuff on shuffle, and then I had to go back and listen to Larry Young. Of course, that was a big deal, Unity and several of his. But I launched into the last probably 48 hours Wild Bill Davis, which that quote at the opening of the show, he put the fat back in the pan. Wild Bill Davis had been playing the organ in jazz. And man, his rhythm of blues stuff, his gospel tunes, Wild Bill Davis could play. And so I've gotten into Wild Bill Davis and just had a fun time. So I've got to say that this has been 7 days of organ music. But Dad, with you, my heart, I feel the church. When Jimmy starts to play, oddly enough called The Sermon, you feel it. I don't remember growing up to an organ. I can't remember Gospel Temple had one. And I'm guessing that Westview had one, but it wasn't big pipes. It wasn't big, but you would hear it. And then, of course, this morning at church, she's playing the organ as well. And so I hear the organ, and I'm like, this takes me back to my childhood. This is church.
Yeah.
And, of course, then this morning she jumped over to the piano and played Majesty. And I could hear Judy and Matt playing that song together.
Oh, yeah.
My week wrapped up in a nice little bow with some organ and some piano and some throwback. So it's been a great week. It's been a great week. And that reminds me that this week we are talking about very specifically the album The Sermon by Jimmy Smith. The Hammond B3 organ and Jimmy Smith became the link between jazz and the 1960s soul music. This was recorded at two separate events on August 25th, 1957, and then February 25th, 1958. It was released on Blue Note. I have it written down as 1959, making this number 2 in our number 42 in our countdown to number 1. The main thing I want to note in that is that this was one of 2 albums recorded at those 2 sessions. So I had to slide up while we were doing that. So,
and hey, let me remind our listeners, if you like what we're doing, please hit the subscribe button. Please leave us comments. Hit the little alarm bell so that you get notified when our new episodes come out. We love to hear your feedback. We are learning. We're on the journey, of course, together and learning about jazz together. And if you've got a bit of knowledge for us, man, drop it on us. We'd love to hear what you got to say. So, yep, mash that like button.
Perfect. Feel like we ought to be done already. Tell them where you can find us.
No. We're just getting warm. I'm just getting warmed up.
Let's get into this.
Let's get it on.
I think we should play clips first. I think we should listen to the music first.
I do not disagree with that. So, Dad?
Yes, thank you. I've chosen the track, The Sermon, starting at 19 minutes, and that's almost the end of the piece.
Now, earlier, right before we hit record, I had asked you the same question. What was your answer?
My answer?
Yeah, to this question. What did you want to play?
I wanted to play the sermon.
Okay.
Oh, you want to hear the whole thing?
Yes, if we could play Flamingo from beginning to end, and JOS from, well, let's start that at the beginning and play through. But then the sermon, it's like what, 20 minutes? Let's start at the beginning.
And just play to the end.
Yeah.
I do not disagree with that statement. I do not.
I don't either. Maybe we should just shut up and just play the music.
3 songs, 40 minutes total. 1903, The Sermon.
And then it fades out, doesn't it? It fades out in such a smooth transition. Yeah.
It's
so cool.
It's almost as if it fades out because they don't want to stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't. I don't think they want a hard cut ending on that song. I love the fade out because you could just picture them just playing for a whole nother 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And the producer just thinking, "Dang, why didn't I get that? Why didn't I keep recording?" That's a great clip. I love that clip because it kind of encompasses the whole thing. We'll put the artists, the musicians up on the screen here in just a bit, but you'll notice that there's not a bass player because Jimmy is covering the bass with the pedals on the organ.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's what a great clip. What do you have to say?
Well, I like the blending of the instruments because it sounds like they're blended. Not one piece is overpowering the other. There's such a smooth rhythm to it and a flow. And Lee Morgan playing the trumpet, dude, he's good. He was very good. So yeah, I think there's the whole album is just so sweet and melodious.
Yes,
Can I say that? So yeah.
Well,
so
Lee Morgan's teacher was Clifford Brown.
It was Clifford Brown. That's why he's so good.
Go ahead, Matt. I didn't mean to put that in there.
No, that's all right. That's okay. That's perfect. What I was going to highlight with the whole song. Now you got Art Blakey on the drums, and anytime you got Art on the drums, you know that it's going to be laid down just darn near perfectly, right? And this song is a 20-minute and 12-second song. For the first 18 minutes and 57 seconds, 18 minutes, almost 19 minutes, Art is doing the same exact rhythm. Bump, bump, psh, bump, bump, psh, bump, bump, psh. For 19 minutes, he's doing that. And then all of a sudden, when your clip starts, Dad, that's when they kind of get into the shout section and run out. I can't picture sitting there and doing the same thing for 19 minutes. I would love to know what's going through Art's mind. What am I having for dinner? What time are we going to be done recording? Man, he needs to take a shower. Man, that guy has bad breath.
I'm going to need a shower after 20 minutes of this shuffle.
Yeah, after the shuffle.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
So that's really like when I listened to the sermon, that I was just focused on that. He was just doing the same thing over and over. And then, then in the shout section, he finally changes. But you got to admit, he's a genius. He's just so spot on. Yeah. So I was looking at the drummer in that song because
There's
of Lady D.
So he's doing paradiddle, paradiddle, paradiddle over and over and over again, isn't he?
Yes, but keeping that time very, very consistent. And
like a
before
Swiss watch.
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. And the other thing about it is Jimmy himself keeping the rhythm with the organ. Like they are so together in this. So
yes,
very, very blended, very well blended.
Well, and it's interesting because there's a bunch of things you just threw out that I'm like, yep. His foot pedaling technique was at a different level. And when you listen to all of the songs, the whole album, you realize there's no bass guitar. All of the walking bass, boom, 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 was all done by his feet. So for 20 minutes, he's stomping on the foot pedals at the organ to create a bass line. And that just blows me away because that was a double bassist job. So he's playing the organ on the top and with his feet. And for Art to run that shuffle for 20 minutes is just mind-boggling. Side note, a few months after this recording, October of 1958, Art Blakey with Lee Morgan and several other members records Moanin', the year of jazz. And that album was killer. So, yeah, phenomenal.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
You say what year? You say 58?
58, yeah.
Okay.
They recorded this August of 57 and February of 58.
Yep.
And then October of 58, many of this crew was over on Art Blakey Jazz Messenger album, Moanin'. Just phenomenal. Phenomenal.
1958 is when Johnny and the Hurricanes laid down the Red River Rock.
It was a good year for music.
It was a very good year.
What a banging year. All right, let's
Drew.
Flamingo.
play clip. Oh, you want my clip?
Yes.
All right, I'm choosing the song Flamenco, and you can start right at the beginning. Play the first 45 to 50 seconds, please.
45 to 50. Here we go. I'll try not to cry.
I mean, come on.
I don't want to stop it. I'm sorry. I'll fade it out. Just
Okay. All right. So I really hate to slam on the King. I hate to slam on Miles, but can you imagine Miles's sound on that? I can't. I just can't. I think Lee Morgan was the perfect choice for this album. I just
Yep. Period. Period.
Freddie could have covered it. But Lee's got that he's got that rounded tone
Yep.
that neither one of those cats had. So he's way more rounded, and especially right there in Flamingo. What a beautiful ballad. It melts you. It just melts you every time. Every time I listen to it, it melted me, baby. Because
Well, I think of Lee's story. I think this week, a year ago when we first did it, this was my rabbit hole as Lee Morgan.
Oh, yeah.
I got stuck listening to 4 or 5 of his albums, The Gigolo, Peckin' Time. That was with Hank Mobley, the cooker. He played the song Night in Tunisia. And then, of course, the main album, Sidewinder, which I certainly hope we see in a countdown. I don't know that we will. He had an early departure from this planet, but I dug into Lee a lot because of this particular album.
I did 3 different albums. Candy, which is a Rudy Van Gelder edition, Standards, and then Indeed, which is also an RVG recording of, and that's just Lee.
Yeah.
Come on.
It's interesting because a trumpet player, I'm going to gravitate towards trumpet players. But when you hear that Clifford Brown learned from Fats Navarro, and from Clifford came Lee Morgan and Freddie Hubbard, I love Clifford. I remember Clifford.
I do like Clifford, but man, you put some Lee Morgan or some Freddie Hubbard on, and I'm done. I'm just done.
Yep.
So,
yeah, you guys are definitely into trumpets, aren't you?
Yes, but this particular album, man, I was all over Tina or Teeny, as they referred to him, Tina Brooks on the tenor, and we'll get into that. But I wanted to hear what did I tell y'all? The beginning of JOS.
JOS, yep.
So this is the third. Now I wanted to talk about this clip because those first 2 clips, the sermon and Flamingo, were recorded in the August of '57. Then they came back in February of '58 and recorded more. JOS was part of that and more, but at those 2 recording sessions, they also recorded the house party. So you'll see the exact same lineups from the February and the August for the house party. But JOS, I'll start at that at the very beginning, and as long as I got that prompt up, I was going to play Flamingo again.
Okay.
Sure. I don't want to stop it there either because you're just getting into it. But I think this is the tenor sax player Lou Donaldson. I had a real hard time.
No, that would have been on the August musicians would have been
My
George
bad.
Coleman.
Yes, George Coleman on the alto sax. That's right.
And my question to myself is, why didn't I rabbit hole down George Coleman just to listen to some more of his stuff? He's Billy B.A. on this album.
Yes. Yes, he is. I had some information on him. George Coleman, because I did do a little rabbit holing on George Coleman. George Coleman was schoolmates with Booker Little, Charles Floyd, Hank Crawford, and several other big names of jazz. They were high school mates. And so when I see the name Booker Little, I love that trumpet. Charles Lloyd, we know what Forest Flower's all about with Charles. Hank Crawford is another R&B jazz, another sax player that I've been told over and over we need to be listening to by a jazz professional here in Austin. And so I see those names and I'm thinking, wow, this dude is somebody we definitely need to know. George Coleman.
Yeah.
So that was my clip of that. And it's just such a phenomenal lineup of musicians. If you look at those names, and we had it on screen earlier, but you've got the likes of Lee on trumpet, George Coleman, Eddie McFadden on guitar, which is who we hear playing there. what I love the most is the way that Eddie and Jimmy are playing the same tune in super. It's like they start and finish the note at exactly the same time, and the bass line running under that on Jimmy's feet is so phenomenal. This one had Donald Bailey as the drummer, and that to me, you start to hear all these pieces come together, and both of the groups from the August recording or Lou Donaldson, Harold Tina Brooks, and Kenny Burrell, Art Blakey on the February stuff, both of these groups just jamming and super tight together. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Dad, what are your thoughts on the clip? What did you think?
Well, again, the word blending came into my head here, to my thoughts, because they blend so well together, and not one is trying to be a superstar at any one time. So they're working together to bring this, to me, a very soulful feel to it, and a slowful. They're not in a hurry here.
Right.
They're just playing beautifully, just playing the melody, playing the whatever else that stuff is called. They're playing it, man. They're laying it down. And Jimmy's putting the fat in the pan right here.
Yeah.
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 Well, it's interesting how you say that. They gave room for everybody to play. And one of the notes I made earlier this week, it's a sermon, right? Jimmy Smith, the sermon. So I think about the sermon being, you get somebody up there on stage that's just going to talk for the 20 minutes. That's what a pastor does. That's what preachers do. But Jimmy's story was told in the first 3.5 minutes of the sermon. And then he took backstage for the next 3 for Kenny Burrell to tell his story, followed by the sax story of Lou Donaldson, who kept it in a lower register to keep it mellow. Then Lee Morgan's story is told through 11 to 14, 14 to 18. Tina Brooks played the tenor. From 1855, they all come back together till 1930, where your clip shows them all back together until he wraps it up in a nice little bow on the organ. So everybody had a chance for this 3 to 6 minute stage presentation, and nobody had to outshine anybody. They just did what they did.
Hey, Matt, answer me a question, Matt. Where does he come up with this stuff?
Every week he comes up with new stuff, and I absolutely love it. That's just a great breakdown of the whole song. I love it. We could just let's just end the episode right now.
Yeah. Yep.
And scene.
Wait, we haven't done the slideshow yet.
Oh, wait, yes.
Let's put the fat in the pan, baby. Let's put the fat in the pan.
All right, here you go. On the first slide, we say it every week. I'm going to continue to say it until we're done with this journey. Whatever you do, do it to jazz. And by the sound of our conversation, you know that that's what we do. Of course, we're talking about Jimmy Smith, the sermon. Moving on to the next slide, the artwork. It's about a 6 out of 10 for me. I'm not really in love with it, but I don't hate it. Let's put it that way. Thoughts? You guys got any thoughts on the artwork?
Personally, I just think he's got in this emotional moment where he's got that kind of tension. He's like, I'm going to talk. I'm going to use my hands. And that's what I think. He's a preacher. He's up on stage presenting.
Okay.
As far as Blue Note record labels, that's not one of their typical covers. That's not what I'm used to.
No.
I'm kind of curious about the hands, the way he's got his hands folded and held, not folded, but stretched out.
Well, I think, like Drew was saying, he was probably in the middle of explaining something, and they snapped the picture. His lips are open, like he could be trying to get a point across.
Just like this right here. I want you to play diggity 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 bop. Diggity bop, diggity 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 dip. That'll dee, that'll do, that'll dee. That'll diddle, that'll do.
Okay, CT. Okay. I like it. But yeah, you're right. It's not a typical Blue Note cover.
No.
On my journey on TikTok, I've been highlighting the Blue Note covers, and this I wouldn't have known it was from Blue Note had we not been studying the album. All right, let's move on to the pictures. The next slide. I just picked two pictures this week. Jimmy is a cool looking cat. They're both black and white pictures, but the top picture, man, he's got that big smile on his face. He's very recognizable to me, you know. And then the bottom picture, him sitting in front of the organ, kind of turned away or turned towards us with just I don't know. He's just got a let's get to work kind of look on his face. So I love those two pictures. The picture in the magazine I like. You know, he's sitting at the organ with the saxophone player behind him. He's smoking a cigarette. But I don't know. I just picked these two pictures just because I liked them a lot.
And I'll put the picture from the magazine up on screen right now.
All right, perfect. All right, let's move on to the next slide, the jazz lingo for the day. Kind of going in a little alphabetical order, but I went with legit this week. And Jimmy, for me, Jimmy is legit. He's meaning he's on point or very good. He's the real deal. So that's legit. You hear a jazz musician say, "Man, that was legit, man. You sound good." you know you sound good.
That word of the day, legit, also brings it up to today. Some people still use legit.
Too legit.
Too legit to quit.
That one was for Kendra.
That's awesome.
Anyways, let's move on to the next slide. This week's album can be found on iTunes, Amazon Music, Spotify, YouTube Music, LP, and CD. And I will tell you that I did check Discogs this week and made sure that it was for sale. So if you'd like to buy the sermon, Discogs has it for sale. Put a quote on the bottom of that slide. Jimmy, I don't know. I had not trouble finding quotes, but trouble finding deep quotes by Jimmy. But this is a quote by Jimmy anyways. He said, 95% of my audience was white.
Isn't that interesting?
Uh-huh.
What, Drew?
When I read that earlier today, I'm like, so does he have a point with this?
Yeah.
What's Jimmy saying? It wasn't a point. It's just that, man, everybody come to listen to my stuff, they white.
Yeah.
And it's segregation and everything else that's going on. You can't. The Savoy had dance parties where black African Americans and whites could dance together, where mixed bands could play together. And I think it's just not a statement, just an observation. 95% of the people that come to my shows are white.
Or maybe he's in the back laughing because, man, you see those guys, they can't dance.
They got four left.
They got 4 left feet. That's funny. Anyways, let's move on to the next slide. I kind of like doing these short little timelines. You can find a really good timeline on Jimmy's the Jimmy's Blue Note page. BlueNote.com has a timeline from Jimmy, but I just put a short one up here. So Jimmy was born in Northwest Philly in 1928. At the age of 15, he entered the Navy and spent just a couple of years in the Navy from 43 to 45. In 1959, this album, The Sermon, the one that we're talking about tonight, this album is recorded. In 1970, Jimmy opens his own supper club. So he's gotten big enough where he feels like he could open up a club of his own, have people come in and listen to him and his musicians play. So I thought that was cool. And then, of course, in 2005, he did pass away. So, I like that timeline. I like the slide. It's actually an animated slide, and someday when I get technical enough, we'll put the animations in. But for now, that's you get what you get.
That's cool. I like it.
Yeah, me too. All right, next slide. We'll just do a few facts and move on here. So Jimmy, again, was born in 1928, passed away in 2005. That made him 76 years old. The influence that I found, and I remember reading a few more influences, but I couldn't remember where I read them at. But Wild Bill Davis was an organ player and really influenced Jimmy. Did you have any other influence?
Well, yes. Yeah. Yes, I did. And that was funny because I had a note here about when he heard Wild Bill, and that was the interesting thing. Jimmy Smith won a Philadelphia. I'll just read the whole information I had. and I'm sure you've got some of this. He won a Philadelphia radio talent contest as a boogie-woogie pianist when he was only 9. He went on to perform with his father as a teenager and played piano in Philly R&B bands in the early 50s. But hearing Chicago swing organist Wild Bill Davis, Smith became hooked on the electronic organ. Now, the information that I found was more incredible to me because I'm expecting to hear other pianists, the Stride, and it mentions a lot of the other Fats Waller who had played organ before this, and Duke Ellington who had played organ before this, but not in a jazz context. Then when I read this, pay attention closely to what the JOS was in the end when he played together with the horns. Inspired by the great horn players of the day, Don Byas, Arnett Cobb, Coleman Hawkins, as well as pianists Art Tatum, Errol Garner, and Bud Powell. And then he cut the tremolo off and began playing horn lines with his right hand. So he mimicked and was inspired by the horn players with his right hand, just letting that roll like a trumpet would, single note. Mm-hmm. So that's what I found in Inspired By.
Brilliant. I love it. Man. Okay, he had 89 studio and live CDs or live recordings, and then as a sideman, he had 24. So that was fun to count, and I barely just scratched the surface listening to the 6 or 8 that I did listen to. Yeah, just scratching the surface. Right. But man, what an intense listen. The genre that's listed, excuse me, is jazz, hard bop, and soul jazz. So that would be the genre for Jimmy. A few fun facts about Jimmy. He taught himself piano at the age of 6. And like Drew said, he went and worked with his father in a song and dance show shortly after he was learning to play the piano. I thought that was cool. He began learning the organ in 1951. So he wasn't born with it. He had to teach himself how to play the organ.
So he was like 23 years old, roughly,
when he started playing the organ. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he had taught himself piano and he played the piano, but then switching to the organ, yes, the keys are going to be similar, but the feel is going to be different, and you got to learn the bass pedals and everything else. So man,
well, it's not just the bass pedals, but I'm going to, here in a little bit, I'll introduce you to Red Young, our local Austin Hammond B3 player. There are 9 bars on an organ. And what I found interesting about the bars, I had to do a little bit of research about the Hammond, and I printed the 12-page document to learn how to play it. The 9 bars give you the different pipe sizes. So if you think about a church organ and these massive pipes that are here, First Baptist Church, that's where I learned to hear the organ. They have these massive structures. Well, each bar is a different set of pipes. And the Hammond B3 organ was first built for a cheap version of an organ and transportable, so you could take it in your big tent revivals. So this Hammond B3 had 9 different valves to pull out, depending on which octave or how much pressure could be applied. So he had to learn the octaves on 9 bars, mm-hmm. and then the foot pedals, which goes to your next fact. I'm going to let you read that.
Yeah, that's all right. He rented a warehouse to practice in, which I just, it was funny. It was a funny fact. It caught my attention, and I'm like, I should have rented a warehouse to practice the trumpet in.
we would have appreciated it as kids.
I bet you would have. But yeah, okay. You get the urge to practice, and you're going to sit down. You're going to maybe sit down for 5, 6, 7 hours at a time. Your neighbors aren't going to stand for you putzing around on the organ at 3 o'clock in the morning. But yeah, you got this open warehouse that you rented, and sure, you can go and practice whenever you want. And learn how to slide in octave and tremolo and everything else. So I just thought that was cool. He did over 40 sessions for the Blue Note label. I think the magazine said 27 sessions, but on his Blue Note page it says 40. And then he switched to the Verve label in 1962. Verve.
Yep. I know. I know. I interrupted you in that, Matt. You had just said switch to Verve label in 1962.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the actual album, The Sermon. This was the 11th album that Jimmy released, so number 11 on his discography. It was recorded in 2 sessions, like you heard us talk about, and it was recorded in the Manhattan Tower Ballroom. Now, I'm just picturing, because I've been downtown Chicago in a ballroom when I played for President Clinton coming in to give a speech. And I know how wide open they are and how they reverberate and what the kind of sound sounds like. So, Rudy Van Gelder was the recording engineer, so he had to set the room up so where you weren't hearing all kinds of reverb and stuff bouncing off the ceilings. And I think he just did an amazing job.
Yeah.
So that was my last fact about The Sermon. RVG was the recording engineer.
Before you get into the 6 degrees. There's a couple of things that keep bouncing up because there's so many great facts about Jimmy Smith. And I think that we can talk about this in a moment, but I want to start the ball now. January 7th of 2005, he was designated as an NEA, National Endowment of the Arts, Jazz Master. And it is the nation's highest honor in jazz. So in 2005, he won a very prestigious award. It's something to be said, pardon me, about his ability as an organist, his ability as a band leader. One of the things that he was known as is the incredible Jimmy Smith. And he was a prolific recording artist, leader, dubbed the Incredible. He recorded around 40, and I think that those 40 sessions were not just his as leader, but with other Blue Note artists. And if you think about the Jazz Messengers and Monin, or he even recorded on Michael Jackson's Bad.
Yes.
He's covered a genre of things, which is so stinking cool to me. But he is, it was a legend. And so it's those kind of things that I forget about how important it is when we sit and talk about these top 100 artists. They are somebody that we should know, period. And I want to plug this real quick. We are part of a long-standing tradition of keeping the jazz legends' names out there by sharing their stories with the world. Yes, we are looking at the top 100 albums, but we learn about the people and the places that they've influenced or been influenced by. We also keep going with this great American jazz or great American music that we refer to as jazz. So for us, these conversations, for me, this is why I geek out on it. I love the history of it. I love learning about who they were, but more importantly, who they played with. And that leads me to the last piece of your slide. Who did they play with?
Not only who they played with, but the reason they played. Some of the history, not just the history, but the times in which they played and the message that they delivered.
Yeah.
Almost
Nina
every
Simone, JFK.
Yeah, almost every one of our artists is conveying a deep, you could call, spiritual message, including Sun Ra. He's got a spiritual message that he's broadcasting.
For sure. So, all right, on 6 Degrees, I was reading that Jimmy and Miles did a concert together in 1961. So there is 0 degrees of separation. They played together. Bada bing, bada boom. Can you get even closer than that?
Nope, I sure cannot.
But I'm sure that you found some artists that.
Well, when I saw your play together on the slide, I thought, well, that doesn't match the stuff that I have, but that's okay, because I'm not going to try to outdo you. I just will have to make sure that I set the facts straight. They were billed on the same night at the same club, but I could not find any proof whatsoever that they played together in 1961.
Oh, no. Google AI. Nope. Google AI. Okay.
I've got that picture up on the screen right now showing the billing of the night, but I can't find that they played together that night.
Ah, dang it.
Now I'm going to I'll turn the recording back on. So yes, 1961, they were showing together. So I couldn't do any better than that. What I did find though, it was the Second Degree. George Coleman on this album played with Miles. Art Blakey, of course, played with Miles. Quincy Jones directed. He didn't play with Miles, but he was arranger and composer for Miles. Lenny White also played directly with Miles, who had played with, with Jimmy. And I dug into Lenny White, and I just have a statement here, a name to learn. What the heck? Lenny White's played with everybody. I don't know this for sure, but I would clap that was important. Now, I mentioned it earlier. It's not 6 Degrees. I know it's irrelevant. But when you've got Jimmy Smith playing on the song Bad from Michael Jackson, I had to go listen to that today. So I tuned on the album Bad today. So I got some MJ in my ears.
Yeah. What a cool fact, too. I mean, just seeing that on his discography, you're like, what? Yeah. So, yeah, that piqued my interest, too.
Dad, did you look? Did you have anything on that?
Nope.
All right. Now, okay. I want to read this because we're talking about Miles, 6 Degrees. Miles Davis had proclaimed Mr. Smith the 8th wonder of the world. And he said that when he heard him play, and I think that was back in 1961. He is the 8th wonder of the world, is what Miles said about him. Joey DeFrancisco said that Jimmy had a spirit and a sound that comes across, and there was nothing like it. He was full of fire and soul, just the complete musician. And so those connections there. Joey was another organist that played with him, but yeah. I think that 1961 Miles was blown away when they played together.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
As he should be.
Absolutely.
I've listened to Jimmy this week.
For sure. Let's move on to the next slide. Today in jazz history, and the reason I want to get to that is because there's a quote up here that I want to talk about between that and Miles. Charles Mingus records Haitian Fight Song in 1957 on March the 12th. Love it, right? I knew you'd love that, and I love it too. Mary Lou Williams, a piano player, and Frankie Newton, a trumpet player, record Russian Lullaby in 1944. Final quote by Jimmy Smith, ... And then when I found my sound, it took me 2.5 weeks to find my sound. And when I did, I pulled out all the stops I could find. So it's funny to me because Miles works a whole lifetime to find his sound. Coltrane works a whole lifetime to find his sound, practices for hours on end every single day to find his sound. And then you got Jimmy said, yeah, it took me 2.5 weeks. I found my sound, 2.5 weeks. Boom, I'm done. Let's play.
Well, think about that. I rented a warehouse space. I didn't have time to play games. I'm going to go sit. I could almost imagine a man sitting there for 2 weeks and just not walking away. I really can.
Can you really find your sound in 2.5 weeks, though? I mean, think.
If he was a pianist long before he got his fingers on the organ, it's just a matter of finding, and he was known for playing in the third bar. That's the interesting part, which is a particular range. Which is why,
it's not the first bar that you go to.
No,
it's not the second bar where you're drinking whiskey.
It's
then the third bar.
Third bar in Dallas where he found his sound.
That you close the shop, right?
That's it.
We're closing, guys. We're closing.
He found the sound on the organ that he really loved, and I think that's what it was. The third bar. It's about where you find your sound. But it probably took him a lifetime to dump that soul into it.
You probably
did.
Yeah, finding the sound's one thing. Adding your own soul to it is a whole different story.
I love the quote, though. I got a good chuckle out of that.
All right, I added a new slide this week because it hit me on TikTok. So I think we should start a segment on what's new. What's new? Now, of course, we're talking about the top 100 albums that shook the world, and these are the jazz giants. Some of them are much, much older, I'm thinking Nina Simone. I'm thinking, Jelly Roll, Bix. They're ancient jazz musicians. I think we should highlight at least one album of something very current. And so it caught my TikTok this morning that it came out, and so I want to highlight what's new this week.
Yes.
Takuya Kuroda. Now, that's interesting to me because he's one of the first artists that you and I talked about before we even started on this journey. We talked about Takuya Kuroda, and we started listening to Takuya. But yeah, Takuya is Kobe born, and this is his 8th album release. He's in the kind of fusion, jazz fusion realm on his trumpet. He's a trumpet player, so of course we're going to be very, very interested in Takuya. But his new album was released February 28th, so just a week ago, 2025. And I will say, I listened to it today. Well, I tried to listen to it, but then I went back to Jimmy Smith. I will get to Takuya tonight. We're done and finish the album. But yeah, Dad, you would like it. It's okay. It's really good, fusion jazz trumpet, and he is Japanese, so Kobe born.
It's interesting because I threw that name out, and you spit back another name to me that week. Well, if you like him, then you need to go listen to Ibrahim Malouf. So yeah, big names. I appreciate what's new. I appreciate this segment of time.
It's good.
Yep. And that completes my portion of the slideshow. Drew, did you have anything else to add?
Nope. No? I got a lot of information to add, but
surprise.
I will say that on the 99 list, Jimmy made the list, but it was a different album. On the 06 list, he made the list at number 32 with another different album. And then, of course, number 42 this year on the 2022 list. So I had to go listen to those albums this week as well. I went back and listened to the 06 and the 99 list albums. Can't go wrong.
And you can find those lists in the back of your magazine if you have your copy of the Jazzwise magazine's top 100 albums that shook the world. It is in the back of the magazine. So when we talk about the 99 list and the 06 list, it's there.
Or if you don't have your own magazine, you can find it on the Unconnoisseur website at theunconnoisseur.com. There's no login required, and we have a ton of information up there.
Absolutely. And a link directly over to jazzwisemagazine.com.
That's right.
That's not paid advertisement. We are becoming jazz connoisseurs.
Yes, we are.
You two are. I'm still very much working on it, but thank you for dragging me along.
I've been waiting all week to kind of get your take, Dad. What was your overall impression? Did it shake your world? Did Jimmy Smith the sermon shake your world this week?
Yes, it did. It truly, truly did. And like I'm saying, though I was occupied much of Thursday afternoon, evening, all day Friday, and until noon on Saturday. We were hosting some people from Peoria, and otherwise, I'm listening the rest of the week to Jimmy Smith, except for the times when I was doing some rabbit holing. But even in my exercise, and Jimmy is right here. Jimmy is filling my ears. Not to overflowing, because I couldn't get enough of it. And so, yeah, blew me away.
Are you ready to rate the album? You want to I really have been waiting.
I was taking my notes to make sure I got the ratings ready. So it shook me.
Can I go to a hole and rabbit hole?
Please do. Let's have it.
Because when I mentioned to you Johnny and the Hurricanes in 1958, that was a chord organ that they were using, and it's like a little plugged-in toy almost that they were using. It's like a home computer. But I also checked out the oldest playable pipe organ is in a basilica in Switzerland, and it was made in 1485.
Holy cow.
Now imagine that. You can still play that thing. I also saw an organ. It was a Wanamaker organ, a particular brand like Hammond, Wanamaker. It had 28,500 pipes.
Wow.
It was humongous. It was just humongous. Okay, so beyond that, I listened to the Bach Toccata
And Fugue
in D minor.
in D minor. Yep.
Did you listen to it?
I've heard that song many, 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 many times.
I'll bet you have.
I love that piece.
Yes. So organs have been around since before Christ was born. And there was some organs that were water pressure driven. Just all kinds of stuff about organs.
1425 was the first. Is that what you said?
No, 1485
1480
is still playable. It's the oldest organ that you can still
years old. That's 600 years old.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. So, I was just intrigued by the idea of how old the organs were, what the first one was, and then I find the oldest playable pipe organ, 1485.
Wow, that's cool.
Does that blow your mind or what?
That's
Just
pretty
because of Jimmy Smith, like, hallelujah.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting, Dad, because we got into Fats Waller playing in I can't remember whose studio it was. It's in the old church downtown. Is it Chicago? I can't remember it, but Fats Waller played it and recorded it. And we got into this under Larry Young. We were thinking, no, he may not have been the one who did it first. Fats Waller did, which the organ in the church became a studio for. Maybe it was Verve. I forget who it was now off the top of my head. But and Matt, that episode in Larry Young, we talked about you listening to the organ in Richmond.
In Richmond, yes, that big pipe organ in Richmond that week. I just thought it was interesting because I was studying a jazz artist and then listening to the big pipe organ, and yeah, that was cool.
Go.
I was just going to say we failed to mention that Jimmy kind of took over for Larry Young when Larry left Blue Note. That's a fact I wanted.
Is that Larry took over? Larry took over for Jimmy.
Larry took over for Jimmy. Yes.
At Blue Note as the organist, the go-to there.
So the organ. Let me go back to this
Yes.
where I rabbit hole. The 10th century, the organ was started to be used in churches in the 10th century. In the 8th century, organs were being built in Europe. I mean, we're talking history here. History.
Yes.
So I was just impressed. Thinking and hearing Jimmy play the organ, I wanted to know a little bit more about organs.
Okay, I can't wait any longer. I'm really interested in hearing what Dad's score is because. Are you ready to score the album? Did you
I'm
write
ready.
it down? Okay, good. Let me drop it on us.
Okay, here I am. I was just short of a 10 and otherwise 9.5. 9.5 on this album.
Nice.
Okay.
I kind of expected.
Yeah.
I thought you may go all the way to 10, but yeah, that's a great score. That's banging.
Yeah.
Score.
And part of that reason is because I felt like we're not in a hurry here to get through this music. We're not in a hurry to do anything but just play this soft, in most cases, soft and soulful stuff. It just, and the blending of it, it was peaceful and calming, really. So yeah, 9.5.
Easy jazz to listen to. Let's put it that way.
Yes. Yep.
Yes, it's easy to listen to.
Yeah.
There's nothing overpowering. It's refreshing. And yeah, you could almost, never mind.
Take a bike ride to it. I did take a lot of walks this week, and the sermon, the whole album was in my ear because it's great because it's 42 minutes long, and so that's 20 minutes out and 20 minutes back, and you got my walk in. at the Unconnoisseur, we don't change our score. We never have, and we never will. I don't feel like I fixed it, but if I could rate it again this week, I would go higher. But I gave Jimmy the week that we did it a 9. I don't know why I couldn't go to a 10. This week I would go to a 15 out of 10.
No doubt about that.
Yeah, as a 9 out of 10 for me. It did shake my world. Definitely.
Matt, you're looking at the spreadsheet. I don't have my number in front of me. I think that I was at the same as Dad was. I think I rated this on a 9.5 on the Richter scale.
Yep.
I remember one of us at 9, one of us at 9.5. I agree with you. I'd give it a straight 13 all day long.
Yeah.
If I were to change, but again, we experienced things that we did when we did. We had already experienced jazz organist with Larry Young in the album Unity. So this was the second time to hear an organ player, and I think that part of that was into that. The week that we did Larry Young last year, I got to listen to Red Young teach a master class on the Hammond B3 organ at the Texas Jazz and Blues Camp, which will be coming up in June. Or I'm sorry, in July. It will be the 10th annual Texas Jazz and Blues Camp. And I'm sure Red will be there playing again. So I'll get some recordings again of him. So, yeah, it shook my world. I think we all had some good ratings. I think it testifies to how strong this album really is. It would be in the Unconnoisseur of Jazz core collection.
Oh, for sure. No doubt about it.
Must have in your ear.
Yep.
Very good.
So I did make one more note that after Jimmy left Blue Note and started working with Verve, he started working with my man Oliver Nelson
In the big band.
in the big band. Now, that led me to one of the albums this week called Angel Eyes, and it's by Jimmy Smith. Angel Eyes has got my man's Oliver Nelson's Stolen Moments on it, done by Jimmy Smith. So if you guys get a chance this week,
I'll put that up on screen right now. Angel Eyes.
look up Angel Eyes, because it's gonna oh my goodness, it's butter. It really is. Okay, who wants to introduce next week's artist?
I got a name for you.
You
And
do?
I think you're all going to like it. How about Mr. Coltrane? John Coltrane coming to you, number 41, and he's playing Blue Train, of all things, Mr. John Coltrane. Now, I've not listened to it, but I have listened to Mr. Coltrane. And
You listen
I'm
to it
thinking it's what his signature type go-to.
You listened to Ascension, that was a hard album to get through.
Yes.
A little more free
Yep.
jazz than
Yep. I'm expecting this to be not the overblowing kind of stuff and then heaviness in my ears. So I'm really looking forward to listening.
So we've got Coltrane on the tenor sax, and Dad, we've got Lee Morgan back in your ear this week on trumpet.
Oh my.
You get to hear more of Lee Morgan.
Oh my.
Curtis Fuller on the trombone, Kenny Dewey on the piano, Paul Chambers on the bass.
Kenny Drew
What did I say?
Dewey. That's
Oh,
Miles.
Dewey. Okay. Oh yeah, Kenny Drew. Sorry, and Paul Chambers on the bass, and Philly Joe Jones on the drums. I mean, that's an all-star lineup right there. In my opinion, that's all-star lineup. It just doesn't get any better.
Yeah.
So Coltrane, Blue Train.
It was on Blue Note Records, recorded September 1957. Right in that sweet spot, 57 to 59. You know, the best jazz albums in the world came right then.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Most
And-
of the
let me just say this. I was just a kid then.
Wow, that was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago. I almost made the comment about the pipe organ, but
Well, yeah, he never did make it to Switzerland in 1480, but I'm sure he heard stories about it back then.
I was going to ask him if he helped put the pipes up, but
No, I will tell you this, that the rainbow when I was a kid was just black and white.
Well, Blue Note Records back then was called Black and White Records.
Oh, you guys, you're bad. You know where they can find us.
As always, y'all can find us on our website. Go check us out at theunconnoisseur.com. Drop us an email, hit us up on TikTok, and check Matt out on the TikTok. And of course, you're right here on YouTube for some of you. For a lot of you, you are still on our podcast, so thanks for tuning in, listening to us, but not actually getting to see our reactions. So thanks for tuning in on the podcasts. Thank you again to everybody for all the great comments. About to wrap up a video project in the next couple of weeks, so I'm going to start to respond to a little bit more of these. So thank you for the comments on YouTube. It has created what a great conversation. So thank you.
And one question: when do we do the 10?
Will be this is the end. Actually, John Coltrane will be our 41, and we'll go do our review after John Coltrane, 41 to 50. That will be coming very soon. We'll do our 10 for 10 recap, where we're just going to blow through and talk about what 10 albums we've listened to, what our immediate thoughts were. With Dad joining us, it's going to be a little tougher to keep it under 10, but it may go to 10 on 15. But wait, I got one more thing. If I can, I just got one more thing.
Okay, Columbo.
You're so bad. Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks.
Have
Cheers,
a good
everybody.
week, everyone. Thank you.